Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, I love to take this particular time because I know that what my guest is coming with I deem important and priceless, and I want to thank them for it. Time. Time is very, very, very expensive, and Peter is going to spend some of that quality stuff with me, and I want to thank you, Peter, for coming for that. The other is your journey. In that story, that history of you, if you will, house all of those things that were you and allowed you to make you who you are today. And I am honored. And I thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Absolute pleasure, Ken. Good day, listeners from Sydney, Australia.
Tell them what you have created, Peter, because I tell them that we create things, we give birth to things that resides in us, and I call those things creation. Tell them what you have created so far out of your journey, your family journey, because I tell them one of the things about a creator is that they're always moving, and what is the hair we talk about today, I guarantee them in another 3-4 months, it has changed because we are growing and we are bringing new wisdom and insight into our creation. Tell them what you have so far.
Ken, what I've created is a way of collaborating. I call it Collabradabra. It's the magic of a collaborative conversation. And it's a creation which means that you become better off, the person that you are in a relationship with, a commercial or business relationship with, or even a personal relationship becomes better off. And ideally, if it's done properly, you get a pro-social outcome too. So it's a way of collaborating by the way that you have conversations with each other. And it took me 10 years working in 12 different countries, literally with thousands of people. In workshop and coaching environments. It wasn't like I just develop it just like this, just overnight. It was very much a creation, and now I have the good fortune of being able to share this approach with you, Ken, and your listeners.
Oh, that is awesome. That is some good stuff. I can't wait. As you said, it didn't happen overnight, and I tell people that's one reason I have my guests tell their story of where they are today, and then we will go back and deconstruct and investigate your journey, if you will, how you created that beautiful picture that you talked about. Talk to us. The very first stop that we have in this journey, Peter, is when the mom and dad bring us from the hospital, we are home. The house is the first stop that we are there. And these entities, our parents, began to deposit some information into you and I. I want you to talk about your family upbringing. What was it like, and how did you come out of that?
Well, you're absolutely right, Ken. It was my mother primarily, like it is with many of us. I was a very introverted, shy young boy, and I was in a family from my mother's side in particular that was full of kids. And my mother always had her brothers or my uncles over for lunch on Sundays, and the house would be full of kids my age. And my mother would be constantly insisting that I come out and talk to my uncles and my cousins. And I insisted I enjoyed my book more. And she said one afternoon, she said, look, just come out and just talk to your Uncle Harry and just ask him questions. Ask him about his time in the bush, because he came from a family of lumberjacks. So I said, okay, Mum, I love my mum. I came out. I just asked Harry, my Uncle Harry, said, how was it being in the bush? How was it being a lumberjack? And I got delighted by these awesome stories he told me about the Australian bush. I just was like being in a trance. Yeah. And I thought, wow, even though I'm an introvert, I could learn to talk to people just by asking them questions. And that was the beginning. That was I guess the seed of where I am now. It's very much my mother's doing. She very much was the person who encouraged me to have conversations with people.
Yeah.
That was where it began.
So let me ask you a question. When you came out of that room, Peter, and you began to engage in the conversation, the beginnings of your beginnings, if you will. And how did that make you, this young boy, as you remember, going into your mind and your memory? How did it make you? What did it do to you specifically when you began to engage?
It filled me up. That's the best way I can describe it, Ken. It filled me up. It made me feel as if this was what I was meant to do. I was meant to relate to people. I wasn't meant to be alone. And the reason I was so unhappy and I was alone was because I was alone.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I was going to get more happy. I wasn't going to get more happy by being more alone. It wasn't great logic.
Yeah.
I was going to get more happy by spending more time with people. And I realized then, I began to realize that the quality of my life was the quality of the relationships I was in. And that was measured by the quality of the conversations I was having. So that like happiness, relationship, conversation, those three things began traveling together for me. Very much again at my mother's encouragement, because she knew this already. That was part of her DNA that she was sharing with me. So that's where I began to realize. I began to realize quality conversations, quality relationships makes me happier. And that was a seed that began in me when I was quite young.
And how did you translate that particular insight as you moved through, let's say, when you were in high school? How did it, with that insight, because that's a powerful insight to think about as a young man, beginning to see the correlation and having a understanding of it. How did it correlate to your relationships outside of your family in a school situation?
Well, it helped me. It helped me develop some very strong friendships, and it's interesting. Just last week, I had dinner with some boys I went to school with when I was 9 years old, and
Nice.
we have stayed good friends. So it translated into friendships. It also translated into romantic relationships, because I found that if I met a girl I really liked, like when I was a teenager, and I asked her questions and I listened to the answers, that gave me a competitive advantage.
All those guys you're listening, Peter just gave you the clue right here, man. Just take it and run with it.
Yeah, ask questions and listen and care about the answers. I'd say that's the secret sauce that I discovered. and I began batting, what we call in Australia, batting above my average, because I just listened and responded to the answers I was given. And I was really good to talk to because I was a good listener.
Yeah.
And so that helps during my teen years. And then I found with my teachers and my university lecturers, I found that if I developed relationships with them, if I asked them questions and I showed that I cared about what they were teaching me, I had a better relationship with them and I'd learn better. I felt like they were teaching more of me personally. They would give me more insight, help me more with my issues and my problems academically at school. So it definitely helped then as well. It was something that it was a gift that just kept on giving.
Yeah.
If you like.
Yeah.
And it was as simple as asking questions, listening to the answers, and caring about who you were talking to. And I began to realize that was the essence of relationships in almost every respect. And I got better and better at doing that. But we're talking now from my teens into my early 20s.
That is a powerful thread. And if you are trained, if you will, in listening, and you were paying attention to what Peter was talking about, it is the fundamental thing that you must do for you, because that theme will come in your life. You have to become a good listener and one that learns how to ask, if you will, the right questions, because you are going to have to do this in your personal development. You're going to have the same conversation that he's talking about with yourself. So here you are, Peter, you've gaining and gaining, and that's a powerful piece, man. That's a powerful tool to acquire at such a young age and understand how to implement it. And you're seeing also the benefit that it brings to you as you're moving. So you are growing, if you will, and believing it and getting stronger. Your faith, your belief system in it is getting stronger. So you're moving forward in your life. You went into your university and you saw the benefit of it there. Let's stop here for a little while. And I want to talk to you as to why did you pick the course of study, if you will, when you went into college? What caused you to pick your course of study and to when you get into college?
Well, when I went into college, Ken, it was interesting. It was partly my choice and partly my mother's choice.
Mm-hmm.
I did well in high school, which meant I could get into a law degree.
Yeah.
I wanted to study business, so I did what we call a combined degree. I studied business and law.
Mm-hmm.
The law to keep my mother happy, and also she said, "Look, you're really good at arguing, really good at conversations, really good at making points. So law would be good for you." But I think she secretly wanted a lawyer in the family.
Yeah.
Whereas I was more interested in business. I really liked the idea of business and how businesses ran. Mm-hmm. So I did what we call a combined degree. So you studied 2 degrees at the same time. Yeah. So that's what I did. That's what I did. And I used the same thing at uni. I got to know my lecturers. I'd get to meet them like after lectures and ask them about essay topics and exam topics, and just get curious and really cared about what I was studying. And again, on a more macro scale, it worked again. It happened because so few students. I'd be sitting in a lecture theatre of say 500 students, which is very different than being in a class of say 20 or 30 boys. Yeah. So few students would be talking to lecturers.
Yeah, yeah.
Like maybe 2 or 3 out of 500. It's a huge competitive advantage. No matter where you are in your life, whether you're in a university, at a school, you're in a relationship, you're in a church, no matter where you are, just talk to the people, ask them questions, and listen intelligently and empathetically to the answers, and your life will just exponentially improve. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, this what we're talking about is, as I said, it is the most important, one of the most important principles that you must utilize in order to obtain your personal growth. Jesus made a statement. I grew up in church. He made a statement, "Those who have ears, let them hear." And I remember when I heard that, I was like, that's interesting kind of thing. And then I realized there was an emphasis on the hearer who has a responsibility to be a listener. And if the hearer is not a listener, they're going to miss it because they're hearing Peter, but they're not listening. And the listening part is what Peter is talking about, because as you listen to the person express themselves, they will give you clues and you will be able to have a better engagement. And as he said, he is going to be batting above his class as he's moving through. So you're in 2 of the most perfect space to have that particular skill, to be one that you understand, that of a lawyer, the art of the conversation, if you will, and the business also demands the art of the conversation and the listening, because you have clients, you have customers, you have all those 2 things. Now, as you're growing in these 2 fields, because that's powerful stuff, you're even programming your belief system more, Peter, because you are in these 2 fields that demands this type of stuff. How did you manage yourself within those 2 fields and having that same knowledge as you're moving through into your life and getting older, as you say?
Well, that's where I made a huge mistake, Ken. a huge mistake. In retrospect, it pointed me in a different direction. But the huge mistake I made was I got both of the degrees. I got the law degree for my mum, the business degree for me. I took a business role, and pretty quickly, I was in a sales role. I wouldn't say where it was, but it was a multinational, very well-known computer organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working there. I was asked to go into a business sales role. We were given a year of training, and I unfortunately drank the Kool-Aid of the organization, and I tried to start to sell. And I was taught selling. I was taught sales.
Yeah.
And I was taught it. And as a good student, I tried to use it. And the more I tried to use it, the worse things got for me.
Yeah.
And it was I was in a disaster. I thought, wow, I'm now a year out of university. I've gone from being a great student to having 2 great degrees. I'm now in the hole, close to being fired, because I couldn't do this selling thing. And they gave us a year of training in those days, Ken, a year of training.
Yeah.
And the more I learned, the worse I got.
Right. I hate selling because I know I'm familiar with it. My business is marketing, and marketing, I tell people, is so different than sales. It is the part that strategize. It is part that do all of that aspect of the business, and the sales guys are the ones that are doing the selling. And I could not stand selling because I was horrible at it. I just couldn't do it, But I look at life this way, Peter, is a series of decisions we make. And I believe those decisions will eventually guide you to the place where you need to be, because you are going to recognize a couple of things when you step out of that thread that you have been relying on and walking with. Is that, wait a minute, I don't belong here. I got to find a way out. And so we spend some years trying to find our way out to get back a little onto that design that we had picked up when we were younger. People began to program, like you said, the corporation got hold of you and programmed you, and you drank the Kool-Aid, you bought into the program. And as a result, you obtain this program, and then you're going to start making decisions that will guide your life based on the program. You are miserable. Yeah. Talk to me about your misery while you were there, because it'll upend your life.
Yeah, it was miserable. It was miserable. It was shattering. Because I believed that big corporations and the business world were on my side.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like the more Kool-Aid I drank, the better off I would be.
Yeah.
And it was a crisis. It wasn't just a crisis, I guess, career-wise. It was also a crisis, like philosophy-wise, because I just felt like, wow, I've been wrong all these years. I've been way off track, and also I felt like useless. I thought, well, I just can't learn this. I just can't do this. My colleagues are doing it really well. I can't do it. And for the first time, I'd say in my life, I was in my mid-20s and really, really crushed. I felt like business wasn't working for me. I couldn't sell. My mum kept saying, "Oh, you should have been a lawyer." What were you doing in business? So she was always in the background saying that to me. And I was in a hole. I was in a big hole, I was lured with a lot of money. They were paying us very well. They were giving us cars, giving us credit cards that we have any expenses on. We're like, they're flying us around the world to sales conferences, to beautiful parts of the world, including Thailand. And I thought, well, this is a great life, but I was really struggling, and it took me a while, and by a while I mean
years.
2 years. Yeah, it takes a couple of years.
Yeah.
To realize that, you know what? I thought, well, this is not working. What did work? I thought, well, what did work when I used to just ask people questions and listen to the answers in an empathetic way? That's what I sort of remember that worked.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, maybe I'll try that with customers.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll just, rather than try and sell them stuff,
Yeah.
rather than closing sales, what I'm going to start doing is opening up relationships,
Yeah.
right? And not bother,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not selling anyway, so I can't do any worse than I'm doing right now. Right? I can't do any worse. So, I mean, is that the stupidity to keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result? So I thought, well,
Yeah.
maybe I'm just going to open up relationships, talk to the customers, care about what they say to me, and be genuinely interested in achieving an outcome for them and with them,
Mm-hmm.
essentially collaborating with them.
Yes.
I didn't know that was collaboration then, but
Yeah.
I'd sort of stumbled upon that, and suddenly things started turning
Yes.
around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I wasn't a popular person because I wasn't doing anything I was taught in sales school. In fact, I was doing the opposite,
Yeah.
and I began being the best salesperson in the organization by doing
Yeah.
the opposite of what I was taught. So I wasn't very
Yeah.
popular.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I was there, man. I was in that field, and the upper boys, they look at you, and sometimes I remember them look at me and go, I don't know what you're doing. I don't care what you're doing. Just the
Just
bottom
keep
line
doing
is
it.
the bottom line was more
Keep doing it.
important to them, but I was learning my pieces that I had to pick up. But everything in life is based on relationship
It is.
outside and relationship inside. That
Yes.
relationship is your personal journey to you.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
the entire
absolutely.
experiment, if you will, is all about relationship, developing and understanding your relationship to you and how you're relating to others. And the only way for you to have a deep relationship is by questions. Do you know any other way, Peter?
No. I think you're right, Ken. I think it begins with a relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
I think, and you mentioned the Bible earlier. There's another great a line which is about the truth. It says, "And then you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free."
Says you
Like
free.
you know the truth about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know who you are, and you trust. You trust that you are designed that way to make a unique contribution, and you also you know yourself, and you attempt to know other people and build high quality relationships with them. So it's like know self, know others, and then become famous for working with people to achieve great outcomes with them and through them and by
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
And that also makes you feel better, because I believe we're hardwired to collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
If you look back through our evolution, the frontal part of our brains developed when we started having conversations with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason this branch of humans developed over the others was that we were better at collaborating and working with each other to achieve outcomes. So you could say it's very much in the DNA as well to do this. And I find that when I'm collaborating more, I tend to find people that are interested in collaborating with me, and I meet the people that I would like to be like, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm building relationships with people that I would like to be like and achieve things with. So you get to win all round. You get more of what you want, they get more of what they want.
Yeah.
And ideally, and there's a lot of work done by the last woman that won a Nobel Prize in economics, Eleanor Ostrom. She won her Nobel Prize for pro-social collaboration, where she looked at how communities collaborated, sharing fields when they were grazing their cattle, when they had their common lands.
Mm-hmm.
And they called it the tragedy of the commons, when the commons were overgrazed. The common land was overgrazed. And she looked at how successful communities collaborated in a pro-social way. So when it's done properly, when it's done well, you get your outcome, they get their outcome, and there's a pro-social outcome too, like something that's bigger than just you two having that relationship. So and that's the magic that I like being involved in creating. And the curious thing is that it works. This is not just me being delusional.
Yeah,
it actually works, because this is what I teach people to do, and it does work.
Yeah,
bizarrely.
The theory is sound. But we lose it. I think we lose it where we, and corporate guys and the mentality on the outside is that one must win and one must lose. And I think when you have language like that, you will always have someone that will come out with a feeling that that they are gypped, if you will. But what you're talking about, and I've studied this in a lot of the guys use this type of approach in negotiation, in high level negotiation, when you're dealing with different countries and all of these different things. It's also used in the corporate field in that level in negotiating contracts, which I was a part of. We call it the win-win approach. Yeah. And the only way you can approve or achieve a win-win is you need to find out the need of the individuals before you. And the only way, as I said, Peter, you can get that is through active conversation. Active meaning you must listen and pay strict attention to what is being said, what is being exchanged. And based on that exchange, that conversation, you will then be able to extract that important desire of that individual. They may not come out and say it, but if you're actively listening, they are saying it, but it's how they're saying it. And so once you extract that and you bring it to a win-win situation, that person will always support you in everything that you do, because you have brought them to this place of common ground, commonness, and they will always stand by your side. And that's when I did that, Peter, that was when my business and everything began to change. When I began to explain. That is what people don't understand. You don't have to have this win and lose mentality, because someone is going to come out of there with some kind of animosity out of that encounter. So here you are, you got this awakening, Peter, when you were in the sales world, and you tossed away the book, the year's training, and you're now in that as you began, because I know this is starting to affect you now personally, because it has to, as it begins to turn on you in a sense, because what starts to happen to us is that we begin to get an uneasiness of where we're at. Talk to me about that conversation within yourself, Peter, as you're moving through, you're seeing this, but there are some light bulbs happening in your mind going, wait a minute, there's some other things that I need to start addressing out of my life and myself. Talk to me about that.
Well, it began, it's interesting, Steve Jobs in his commencement address, one of the last addresses he made to a major college in the US, said, I'm going to tell you 3 stories. And one story he told was, he said, look, life's a series of dots. We can only join the dots backwards. And I look at how my dots join backwards, in that I became very successful as a collaborator. Mm-hmm. And then I got retrenched. I got sacked, basically, from the organization I was with. I won't say who it was, but a global household name in IT and computing. Mm-hmm. And I was given a recruitment consultant, like an outplacement consultant, to help me find a new job. And she said, I want you to, first thing you've got to do is write down a list of 100 people that you know, call each one of them, tell them that you've been sacked or retrenched, same thing, and ask them for their advice. I thought, okay, fair enough. Pretty embarrassing thing to do, but I did. In that list of 100 people, I got to person like 16 or 17, a friend of mine called Tracy, who I'd worked with and I knew as a friend and a work colleague. And she said, Peter, I think you would be ideal in consulting and training, because you're so good at explaining things to people and you're so good at relationships. And this whole collaboration idea, you should get in the training and consulting business. I said, really, Tracy? She said, yeah. So in fact, a friend of mine runs a training and consulting business. You should go and talk to him. I said, okay, fair enough. So I went to talk. Turns out the company I was talking to, a school friend of mine was working there, which really helped. Yeah. So I joined this organization, which was a training and consulting company. And I learnt the consulting and training business, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And I began then teaching what I was preaching, if you like.
Yes, yes.
I was preaching this collaboration idea, and I was beginning then to translate that into something that I could teach people as a package rather than just like a philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I could convince people, yeah, that's the why. But okay, well, practically, how do I do it? And I began working with people, particularly people that were like scientists, engineers, accountants, people that weren't naturally good at building relationships and selling, if you like, but had to as part of their role. And I began developing this what became the Collabradabra approach. This was over a series of years. I went back to uni. I did a master's in communication so I could understand this more from an academic level. And I developed the approach. And I was every week I was running workshops and testing what I was doing with the people that I was with. So like bring in your most challenging situations, bring in your most challenging clients, bring in your most challenging internal stakeholder conversations, and let's apply this Collabradabra approach to what you're doing and see how well it works better than anything else you're doing. Because I was throwing that challenge out to them, and I would bring in the hard conversations into the room, into the workshops, and we were applying this approach, and it worked.
Yeah,
it works.
That's powerful to witness that. I call it the full spectrum, approach, if you will. It's both the theory and the lab. You're getting to see it, where you're talking about the theory aspect of it, but if you don't practice the lab part of it, I'm not sure. Right now, it's just a thesis. It's just putting some ideas together.
And it's easy to go to a conference and make a speech about something and say, here's what to do. But it's got to be when rubber hits the road. You've got to show people how this works practically in real life. And fortunately, it did. And that was 15 years ago. It began. Wow. I began doing this, and then it took me another 5 or 6 years of working in the end in 12 different countries. To complete the approach, to really round it out, if you like. I'm not an easy guy to please, Ken.
Talk to me though, Peter, as to you're doing all of these things. You're seeing the results happening in people. Talk to me about you. Here you are you are in the midst of this. You're watching this, the fruits of your labor bear fruit, if you will. What was happening to you while you were the observer of all of those things and the partaker of those things that you were involved in? And
I love that question, Ken, because you used the word observer. Mm-hmm. And I like to think of the observer's perspective. Yeah. It's almost as if I'm sitting in a cinema observing my life, observing what's going on, as opposed to being in it. Like you're watching a great movie, you're in the movie, you're feeling the movie, you're responding as if you're in that movie or in your life. And in fact, there's an observer in you that's even observing your own life in a weird sort of way. So I was observing this. And I was getting happier and happier and happier. Not happier as in like telling jokes and being fun to be around, but just getting more genuine contentment. I met, during that time, I met the woman that became my wife and the mother of my children. And my life just got full. The more I was contributing in this space, the better my life became and the happier I became. And it's interesting. I remember reading in psychology, a wonderful quote from Carl Jung when he said, there's an inner self that beckons you on a call to adventure. And I thought, I'm actually on my adventure. I feel like this is my adventure from when my mother encouraged me to talk to my Uncle Harry to now. I feel like this is very much my journey, my very unique adventure. And now I'm helping other people. I'm part of their journey and helping them get their call to adventure and build the sort of relationships that they deserve to have the things they deserve in their life. So I love that. I love the contribution piece. much
Yeah.
more than the personal satisfaction. I just love that contribution. I love that.
Yeah, that's the space. And I tell people, Peter, that's the place where every human being must attain or desire to go to. Because when you get there, you're describing something. When I was talking to someone a little while ago that, you could be making billions of dollars, but you will do what you're doing because you find out that this is me. This was why I was brought on this planet to do. And it doesn't matter that all that billions of dollars will not stop me from doing this, because this is where my happiness, my joy, those are the stuff that we talk about comes from, not from the $1 billion a month.
And what I'd suggest to your listeners is only you know what makes you happy.
Yes.
No one else can tell you what makes you happy.
Yeah.
Because you can feel that inner voice, that sense of what you like and don't like. And part of the challenge I find is that a lot of the rest of the world is encouraging us otherwise. I think companies, a lot of big corporates like us to be unhappy, because the more unhappy we are, the more we're going to buy. Mm-hmm. A lot of governments like to keep us scared, like scared of wars, scared of COVID, scared of depression, scared of just scared in general, because when we're scared, we're easier to govern. So there's a lot of external noise making you feel unhappy and scared, and not wanting to really reach into and trust this inner voice. But what I'd recommend is definitely listen to it and follow it, and that's when you'll be both most happy and most useful at the same time. Most useful to others and most happy in yourself at the same time, no matter what that is you choose to do.
Yeah, it is designed to awaken you. That little probing there is the seed by which you are going to awake. And if you quiet yourself, because one of the other tools that they utilize, Peter, is to keep us busy. We're so busy because if we're busy, we are not able to focus within the inside, the calling of the voice, because we're drunk going to sleep. And because we're drunk to sleep, we don't even hear it, because they make us drink because we're stressed. And we find ourselves in this cycle that lasts 50 years and plus. And then we realize one day, I haven't done anything with the time that I was gifted to be here. And that is a sad day. Here you are, Peter, and you're awakening, you are realizing the growth of you, as you are also assisting those that are outside and around you. As you began to notice the growth in you, you mentioned some of the flagpoles, if you will, that you will recognize that you're where you're supposed to be, the joy that begins to slowly weld up, the peace, the excitement, all of those things that are there. So here you are, and you've been in this for a mighty long time, Peter, and you now are formulating it. You're bringing it a way by which you can now, I tell them, it takes time to cook a good dish. And so, Peter, you cook this good dish, and you got your special name with it, and you're now ready to serve others. Talk to me as to when you finally put all those pieces, because you said it took you 10 years. When you finally put it together and you looked at it, Peter, and you go, yeah, that's the stuff I'm talking about. How did you feel? And what was the circumstances that brought you to the final pieces of that puzzle?
How I felt was strangely calm, Ken. Weirdly calm. And I remember I was running a program in Cairo, of all places, Cairo in Egypt, of all places, and it was with a group of people that were running a global freight organization. And most of these, they were all men in the room. They were all ex-sea captains. They were pretty tough type of individuals. By tough, I mean in the morning tea break, they were drinking whiskey and smoking cigars and discussing where they were going to go hunting on the weekend. They were pretty hardcore men, right? And I thought, if anyone's going to reject this, it's going to be them. But they took it on board. It worked. I remember getting back on the plane, and funny how fate works. I normally travelled like regular class on a plane, but because they had so many frequent flyer points, they bumped me up to first class.
Yeah,
and I flew back from Cairo to Sydney first class on Emirates, which was, so I'm sitting in first class, choosing which sort of nuts I'm going to have and what sort of champagne I'm going to have with my nuts. Right? Sitting there thinking, I've just cracked one of the hardest audiences. I'm sitting here with my champagne and my nuts, like working out what sort of cashews I'm going to have.
Yeah.
Which I never get to choose. And I thought, well, yeah, this is cool. I reflected on that flight. Reflected.
Yeah.
As I was chewing on my cashews and drinking my champagne, I was reflecting. Yeah, this is really cool. It finally worked. It's finally, all the pieces are finally fallen together.
Yeah.
And so that was if there was a moment, it would be on that flight. And bizarrely enough, the universe gave me first class back.
Yeah, I gave you a celebration and you didn't even see it.
I thought it was an accident. Yeah, and I got accidentally bumped up. It's bizarre because you have your own flight attendant, your own person. You got one-on-one.
Yeah,
and all she's concerned about is like the linen you want on your bed and what sort of nuts you want with your champagne and what sort of champagne. I'm thinking, I would never think like this. It's like, I don't know how to answer your questions.
Isn't that a beautiful reward, though, in the sense that you've done the work? You have been trusted with the process, and it has taken you 10 years. You have been faithful, if you will, in the ups and downs and the inertia of all of the details that it takes to put it together. And you did it. And the universe says, well done, gives you the promotion and the celebration of that. That is a perfect thing, man. I mean, it's absolutely perfect. You didn't even did that. You couldn't say it just happened. I love when people say it just happened, because someone is watching you, Peter, for that to be happening.
Absolutely, and I strongly believe. I mean, one of my mottos is when people say, "Who do you work for?" I say, "Look, I work for the universe, and the universe works for me."
Yeah.
And what I find is when I work for the universe, like when I work to make like what I call universal contributions, and I listen to my voice, my call, if you like, the universe works for me, but it usually comes back in different ways.
It's a partnership.
It's a partnership. I might help a group of people in Cairo or Singapore, but then the universe will work back by helping my son something in his life. It doesn't come back to people. Often think things come back directly from what you're giving. It doesn't work that way. No. It works from somewhere quite different.
Yes.
And you can't really understand, but definitely works. I find the more deliberately positive and collaborative my intent is, more authentic I am, the better my life becomes.
Yes.
It just
and that's where you have. We talked about the authentic life, or the authentic living. Is that the expectation is all that you do is give. And the reward is that the principle is give and you shall receive. Now, how you receive is not dictated, is it? And so it shows up in other areas, like you mentioned, your son, or maybe somewhere else. But the process is working. And so we are collaborators, if you will. And when you understand that, Peter, there is a peace amongst it. Because if you don't understand it, I find that people make demands. And when you make demands, the relationship has changed. Even if you're having a natural relationship with someone, when you start making demands, the relationship has changed. And if you do not allow yourself to do that, but allow yourself to give, the principle is not one who demands will receive. It is who give. And when you give freely, you will receive. And don't look how it comes.
Absolutely. And you walk in that corridor. I like to think about walking in that corridor. If I'm walking in the corridor of giving, that puts me in a different mindset, a different space. And I attract different people and opportunities into my life. That's how it
Yes.
works. Whereas if I'm thinking very selfishly and very much about what's in it for me, that whole
Yeah.
with them piece, I will attract people that are looking towards getting something out of me. I get something
Out
out
of
of them.
you.
It's a very
Yes.
destructive sort of relationship.
Yes. It
And
changes it.
then you attract different sorts of people, different sorts of
Yeah.
opportunities, and it just I can't explain how it works. I just know I don't know the process through which it works, because I think it's happening in a different realm or a different space than I can
Yeah.
understand. But
It's
I
the
know it
energy.
definitely works.
I
It's a
believe
different
it's the
energy. Yeah,
energy that we send out. And Jesus says, he says, it is better to give than to receive. And so the advice is that it is better to be in that space of a giver than the space of wanting to get some mad, because people can come. I think if you shift your energy and demand stuff, it sends out this force because, and all of a sudden you find yourself attracting the strangest people, but then it's the mirror of yourself. You're actually making a shift,
yeah,
and it's
yeah, yeah.
very, very subtle. But usually, Peter, for me, I pay very close attention many times as to who is showing up, because it
Mm.
will alert me that I'm shifting, I'm moving off, and
Yeah, yeah.
once I notice it, then I would start to make my adjustment. And I remember I was moving off, Peter, in a situation where um, I would find myself internally beginning to resent things, and I didn't understand what it was, and people started showing up in my life, and it brought it to my attention because of my meditation, habits. And when I saw that, Peter, I remember just sitting there in that meditation space and say, "Wow, I want to learn." And I made this declaration that I want to now learn how to respond from a space of love with my actions and my thoughts before I become reactive, because I found myself still becoming reactive and reacting out of
Mm.
anger or something. I want to be able to be authentic enough to respond to anyone that comes to me with the lens of respect and love from there, and in my actions and in my words. And when I
Yes,
began to practice it, Peter, everything changed as
it,
to
it
who
it does
started it.
change. I think it was Viktor Frankl, the concentration camp survivor. He wrote "Man's Search for Meaning," and one piece of that I really enjoyed was he said, "In between a stimulus and a response, there's a space.
Yes.
In between the stimulus in your life and the response
Hmm.
that you give, there's a space. And that's a space where you can choose how to respond. And
Yeah.
in that space is your freedom. You are
Yes.
free to respond in a different way.
Hmm.
And often with all the what we discussed around the companies and governments often wanting us to be unhappy and scared, it's often hard to step into your own space and make your own decisions. But what I've found, definitely in my life, and the people around me that think in a similar way, is our lives are demonstrably better. Like
Yes.
happy, better relationships, better
Yes.
friendships, better marriages, better parenting. It works right across the board. And I
Yeah.
can't recommend it highly enough. That's why I call it magic. I don't know how magic happens. I mean, sometimes they're just tricks, but there is real magic in the world,
Yeah.
like in people, in relationships, in circumstances,
Yeah.
and that's why I call it Collabradabra. It's the magic of this collaborative conversation. Something
Yeah.
magic will happen
Yes.
for you, for them, and ideally like a pro-social outcome or an outcome bigger than either of you could have imagined through
Yeah.
that relationship you develop in that collaborative space. That's what I've learned ever since I was a little boy, stuck in my room reading a book, not wanting to talk to my uncle and my cousins.
Guys, everyone that is listening to this conversation with Peter, it has been absolutely powerful for me as well to see the thread. And that thread, as I have learned in my time on this planet, it is the entrance of all things. It is the conversation with yourself, the conversation with others. It is the active listening, the active attention to the conversation that will give you, and you will see the truth And as Peter mentioned, that document that tells us that when we see that truth, it will make you free. And it's through that conversation as you are having with others, those that are listening, get into Peter's space. Find everything that he does. I will help and I will provide all of those things. Find it, get into his space, learn from him, and free yourself within that space. Miles Davis says the same thing from a musician point of view. He had the same revelation. He said, between all the notes, there's that space. And so here is a gentleman that understands the dynamics within that space, and he's able to assist you to see it as well. And I want to just encourage you guys to reach out to him in every fashion, get into his space, as I mentioned, whatever, books and all of things that he has. Purchase them, get it, give it to people so that we can all grow and learn and appreciate what was given to us today through Peter. Thank you so much, sir, for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Absolute pleasure, Ken. And I trust and hope that there's been something of value that I've shared with you today that's going to demonstrably make your lives better. That's my wish for each of you.
I believe you have. Thank you.